Hey everyone, welcome back to Reading with Tatiana. Today I'm reviewing Beasts of the Little Land by Juhea Kim. And do not sleep on this book. It is an easy 5 out of 5 and probably going to be one of my top 10 reads of 2022. My Booktuber Shoutout today is it's Erin. I'll link her channel down below. And why I'm picking Erin as my Booktuber Shoutout today is because I was referred to reading this book, Beasts of a Little Land by Erin, in her video specifically called 15 Books by Asian Authors that she wants to read in 2022. Her channel has a mix of book hauls, reading reviews, also building a bookshelf. So if you want to check Erin's channel down below, I'll link it down below. And as always, before I go into my full review, I would deeply appreciate it if you can hit the subscribe button. If you like this video or this book, give this video a thumbs up. And if you've read this book, I'd love to hear what you thought about it in the comments down below. So the genre and the year this book was published, it was published in 2021. And from what I understand from reading about it online is that it's only been an indie soft launch in 2021, but the actual mainstream big release is actually this year in 2022. And this book is just so impressive to me because it's Juhea Kim's debut novel and it's just such an amazing book. So the genre of this book specifically is historical fiction, if you like that. And more specifically, it ranges in decades from 1918 up until the 1960s, obviously building up to the Korean independence in the 40s and 50s and the separation and also the aftermath. So if you're into historical fiction set in Korea, a bit of Japan mixed in, a bit of China mixed in, and just learning more about Korea, I think this book is really for you. I also tell a lot of my friends that if you love Pachinko, which is a very popular book, I think you'll love this book. This one is set more in Seoul, where Pachinko, I believe, was set more in Japan. A bit about the author, Juhea Kim. So she was born in Korea and her family immigrated to Oregon, Pacific Northwest, when she was 9 years old. She later on went to Princeton University and she graduated with a degree in art and archaeology and a certificate in French. And I honestly am probably fangirling way too much on her, but the more I read and learned about her, the more excited I was. So when she came to America and she learned English, she realized that learning language is power. And it actually wasn't that easy for her to learn English. Eventually, when she did master it, she understood that to be able to read, to understand, to write is the basis of your agency as a human being. So I thought that was a really cool realization she had at a very young age. And if you're someone that grew up speaking more than one language, you realize it's so lucky to be able to think in different ways, because I speak English and Cantonese and there's some words that I don't know how to say in English, and there's still some words I don't know how to speak in Cantonese, and it's just a different way of thinking. So I feel like even if you're someone that grew up in a monolingual household, if you're able to have the capacity to learn a second language in your adulthood, try it, because you really feel your brain stretching in uncomfortable ways, but also it's very rewarding to learn a different language. A bit of a segue there, but as I said before, this book is her debut novel, which is so impressive. But if you check out her website, she writes lots of articles spanning very different topics. Her passion is she's an ethical vegan, she's a composting enthusiast, she's a plastic vigilante, she's a nature photographer, and she's an avid hiker. And currently she still resides in Portland, Oregon, where she lives in a solar-powered home. So she is all around a great human being in my books. A bit about the story. To be honest, I'm not going to go into too much detail in this review because I just feel there's so much going on, but I'll summarize it for you to try to entice you to read this book, because I really recommend you reading this book. So the reason why I love this book so much is it does span over 5 decades, which is a huge slice of time in life, and there's just so many characters. But for me, it never felt like there were too many characters, and it's just so amazing how some characters pass across very not significantly in the past, but later on happen to be a big significance. And there are some characters that may be linked by a mutual character who don't know of each other, but because of the mutual link, their paths cross, and it's oh, what are the chances? So I love this book. Talks a lot about fate and about how karma comes around to get you, and how things have consequences in life that you don't realize when you're younger. In this book, I really love because you meet people from different societies and different classes, as the case with Korean independence and also the war leading up to it, and also Japanese taking control of Korea for a few decades. And you meet people that are orphaned, you meet people who are adopted by certain agencies. So for example, one of the main characters, Jade, she we meet her when she's very young, and we follow her up until her later life, and she is kind of taken in as a courtesan. That's basically like the Korean equivalent of a geisha, and it's just really cool to see how her life changes from as someone that grew up in the countryside to the city to being a sought after actress, and then also her life after that. And this book just shows a really good way of how life isn't always going to progress better and better. And when you meet someone at a certain time in their life, who knows what will happen a decade or 5 years from now, because there's so many things out of your control. So an example, when it's set between 1910 and 1960s in Korea, we come to know that eventually Korea becomes separated. And the way they talk about North and South Korea in the book is so like passive, like, oh, like you can go to Pyongyang or you can go to Seoul. It's very easy. And then when separation happens, people are still able to like maybe visit back and forth, but eventually it's this very like stark separation to what we now know nowadays. So this book makes me really reflect on like how my life is so easy now in Canada, but in the blink of an eye it can change so much in 5, 10, 15, 20 years. I feel I'm segueing a lot in this book, so I just want to sum up this section quickly by how I love this book, because we have characters that are orphans, like I said before, people who are kids who are adopted. We meet young people, older people. We meet people who are in power in the military. We meet people from the villages in rural Korea. We meet people who are rickshaw drivers. We meet people who are revolutionaries in the separation or independence of Korea. And you meet people on both sides of, like, they're from Japan and they want to take over Korea, but also within Korea you meet people who want Korea to be independent from Japan, and some people who want to be independent in a different way. So this book just covers so many things that in a way it's almost like a textbook, but it's fictional, so it's like more entertainment, and you just get really sucked into the characters and all their stories. Common themes in this book, honestly there's so many. I feel this book is about life, so I feel when you get a chance to read it, you'll interpret how you will. But I think the one theme that I will mention is inyon in Korean, which basically means human connection, and it's really the purpose and all you need in life. Like obviously there's other things you need in life, like food, money, shelter, that kind of stuff, but what we really want is that human connection that we all yearn for, no matter where you are in the world. And one of my favorite quotes in this book that's really going to stick with me is, death is such a small price to pay for life. And that really gets to me, because the thing that we all will experience in this world together is that we're all going to die, and that's a great equalizer, but that's such a small price to pay for the life we have the chance and opportunity to live. And in this book, not everyone has a great life, and some people do, some people don't, but it just makes you realize how it's such a gift to live, and what you make of your years on earth is really important. Other common themes I want to touch on that I felt was really prevalent through the book, especially with all the characters and about like the Japanese people being in Korea, is the idea of power, and how some people are driven by having more power and obtaining more power, but sometimes that's also their downfall. And that kind of ties in with power, loyalty, ambition, and how all these driving factors will impact on how you lead your life. So I really enjoyed that aspect of the book as well in regards to common themes. There are 2 more quotes I want to share in addition to the death is a small price to pay for experiencing life. The other one is, life is only bearable because time makes you forget everything, but life is worthwhile because love makes you remember everything. And I really thought that quote was really beautiful. Another quote I really enjoyed, which was in the acknowledgement, so it's not in the story, but in Juhea Kim's words, is suffering knows no borders and all people deserve to yearn for peace. So I really like that too, because in the book you meet people from very different walks of life, and ultimately that's what we all want, to keep it simple. We just want to be loved, human connection, and we want peace. Like no one wants to struggle. And in a way I would argue that it's not that we all want happiness, we all just want to be content and feel safe. What I didn't like about this book, so like I said before, I feel this book is going to be a top 10 out of 10 for me this year. So one thing that I didn't like about this book is I wish it was longer. It was one of those rare books that I wasn't ready for it to quite be over, and I was quite sad, because when the book is over, that means the characters are done existing in my life. I don't really get to follow them anymore, except in my imagination, to imagine what happens to them. So that was my biggest con. I just wish this book was longer. I wish there were spin-offs for each character, and just to get to know each character a little bit more. I feel like I rave about this book quite a bit. There's just so many things I liked about it, but just to sum it up, I think my 2 favorite things is that It's a blend of mystical folklore and reality of the modern world in Korea. I also saw an interview where Juhea Kim says, why does she think that people globally all over are so drawn to Korean stories, either in K-dramas or in novels like Pachinko and this book? And she answered that she thinks Korean storytelling is focused on creating flawed but relatable characters who are thrown into high-stake conflicts, and that's the type of, I guess, usage used in Korean storytelling. And I think that's very true because in this book, there's no character that is like a obvious protagonist or a good person. They're all just doing their best. They're thrown into these situations where it's like, oh, you kind of think about if you're in this situation, how you react, and there's no easy answer. So you can really relate to every character, even if they're like the bad guy. On Goodreads, this book got an average of 4 out of 5, which I really disagree with, but I'm going to say it's because the book just had a soft release in 2021 and a big release in 2022. So I have really high hopes that the rating average will go up as it gets more popular. So some bad reviews that people had were they felt there were too many characters and it was hard to follow when you go from each chapter which character that we're following. And also, like, even though it covers 50 years and several decades, it's not linear. Like, we'll kind of have like sections of like 1918 to 1923 and it will skip to 1929. So I think people will find that frustrating because you kind of wonder what happened to those characters in those in-between years, which kind of goes back to why I didn't like the book. I just wish the book was longer so I can see how these reviews are valid. And reasons why people like the book, similar to what I've already raved about several times, is they love the crisscrossing of paths of different characters, reminding them a lot of Les Miserables, and also they love the build-up of all the decades leading up to Korean independence. And a lot of people said that when they finished the book, they are left wanting to learn more about it, and I really agree with that as well. Other reasons why people liked it is that it's very honest about the brutality of life, and no matter what you want sometimes, things just don't work out, or sometimes they do work out in the unexpected ways. Why I think you should read this book. So the number one reason why I think you should read this book is if you like Pachinko, you will probably like this book. And also it's historical fiction and it follows characters over 5 decades, which I think is very interesting to read about. Now I'll share how this book made me feel, because I like to ask people every time they finish a book how a book made them feel, because if you ask me tomorrow, a week, a month, a year from now, I probably won't remember the exact details, but I'll always remember how a book made me feel. So Beasts of the Little Lamb by Juhea Kim, it made me feel all the feels. It made me feel all the highs, all the lows, how beautiful life can be, how chaotic it can be, and honestly, like, I just can't wait to read this book in the future, and it just reminds me that life is a gift. Thank you for watching until the end. That was my book review for Beasts of the Little Lamb by Juhea Kim. If you want to join me next time, I'm reading Barren by David A. Robertson, and I'll see you guys next time. Bye!